Greetings, my fellow psychronauts. I had something very interesting happen yesterday and also had an epiphany moment about my shadow. Let me give you a recap of how I got into this journey. In the summer of 2023, I came to this realization that the next step that I needed to take was the healing of my body. All I can describe it is as this knowing throughout my being that that the next step was to heal trauma from my body. Out of the blue, a psychologist that I befriended in an ayahuasca session that I held in the past reached out and recommended a book called The Body Keeps the Score by bessel. I read the book, and for me, that was confirmation that was the next step that I needed to take. When I decided to take that journey, I had no idea what to expect. I was open, had no expectations. I flew to Turkey in early January and had a gastric sleeve surgery. On March 8th, I had planned a psilocybin session with two female friends. It was just to be a fun day. I had no idea that it was International Women's Day when I planned it. And I was looking forward, so it was March now. I was looking forward to the session, and about 2-3 days before the session, I had an atomic bomb of a trigger. This brought out an rage that I had not felt since I was 11 years old. It was the first time that I acknowledged my shadow, because in the past I was just suppressing it because I thought that part was evil. And I couldn't contain it. It was out, and it did not want to go back in. So I became the observer. I watched the behavior that I was doing. I had to deal with this rage and try to understand, where did this rage come from? As I started to understand my shadow, so this is when I started becoming curious about the shadow. I had heard about Carl Jung, but I never looked into his work. So this is when I started looking into the shadow, trying to understand it. And what I understood was that this rage that I felt, somewhere between the ages of 8 and 11, I gradually started becoming aware that the sexual abuse that I endured as a child was not okay. This ended up creating this rage within me that is very difficult to describe, that it was starting to turn me into a little sociopath. However, I wasn't realizing then, I realize it now this year, that there was another part of that shadow, another rage that was already starting to show up. But I didn't understand the behavior. I was just seeing it as the same kind of rage. I ended up reuniting with my father in this October of last year. And this brought out another rage. I still hadn't acknowledged what it was. For the beginning of this year, 2025, I was still dealing with understanding the rage. I had just taken a class on antisocial behaviors. Then I got triggered. And then this other layer of my shadow came out, and I recognized it right away because I just taken a course and I recognized the behavior. I have a defiance against authority. So I was trying to understand, where did this defiance against authority come from? And I started getting memories of my father, but I still wasn't really putting the pieces together. Then on September 8th, I ended up triggering myself by using a couple of words that my father will use against me to put me down. A friend a few weeks prior had messaged me about doing an ayahuasca session on September 12th. So I got triggered on the 8th. I decided to go through with the ayahuasca session on the 12th because I'm currently testing what happens if you do a psychedelic session after a trigger. What happens? Does it accelerate the program? So far, what I'm noticing with triggers is yes, it does accelerate the process, the healing process, because you confront the trauma, the trigger right then and there. You're not letting it simmer and wait and let it just get bigger and bigger than what it should be. You confront it right then. I did experiment this with a different group. I did get some positive results, but I'm still in the observation stages. And when I'm able, I would like to kind of test this out and see which type of people would be suited for this type of therapy. So anyways, I went through the session. It was very intense. I already know, I'm very familiar with my healing process, and I knew I was going to experience a dip. I was feeling really good after the ayahuasca session, but I knew a dip was coming. And this is when I start to release the trauma. And what I've been noticing with my body is very different than healing of the mind. With my body, I noticed that it's been holding on to emotional trauma. That's what it was holding on to. So I was holding on to this rage and a mixture of the sadness attached to it as well. On September 30th, I went through the emotional process. For me, I tend to release the trauma through tears since I had a difficult time expressing emotions. I noticed that the healing of my body involves a lot of emotional stuff. And so I released it on September 30th. I went through about a week where I felt very fatigued. And then gradually I started gaining my energy back. Okay, so what happened? Yes. So 2 days ago, I started receiving this memory. So the memory that popped up, this was December of 1991. I was 16 years old and I had gone to visit a friend. I was supposed to be back home by midnight. However, my friend and I ended up falling asleep and I woke up past my curfew. When I woke up, the only thing that was on was the TV. And of all movies that were on that night, it happened to be The Exorcist. And this movie freaks me the fuck out. I went to look for my friend. He was sleeping in his room. I woke him up and I told him, hey, I gotta go home. I called my mom. She was really angry. And she told me, I'm not gonna pick you up. You better come home. So I told my friend, okay, I need to take the bus home. He went with me to the bus. By this time, it was already like 2:30 in the morning. And I got on the bus. I said goodbye to my friend. He watched me get on the bus. And then I had to make a different connection. So I got to where I needed to take the next connection. And I had to go up some stairs because I had to go up to where the bridge was. And I was waiting for the bus. By now, it must have been like 3 o'clock. It was early in the morning. And where I had to wait for this bus, this was in the City of Industry in California. I was facing a main road. Behind me was another road, and then there was houses in the back. So there was really nothing around me. There was no way for people to see anything happening. Then to my left, I started seeing this blue big rig starting to slow down. There was something in me that was telling me that I needed to run. That I needed to run right now. But because I saw myself as this tough person, I said, no, I want to wait I'm not going to miss the bus. Whatever happens, I'll take care of it. I mean, this is how confident I was as a teenager. So this big rig pulls up in front of me, blocks me from the main street, Any cars that were passing would not have seen what was happening. The truck was idling. It was still on. And then around the corner of the front comes this petite, slender, Mexican-American man with short curly hair that was it was long, maybe like shoulder length, curly, tan. I could tell he was born in the US or he was brought from Mexico at a young age, but he felt that he was born in the US. He opens the passenger door of his truck and he says to me, "Come, I'll give you a ride. It's cold." Now, I was wearing black stockings and shorts and a sweater, a black sweater. I was not properly dressed for winter. And I told him, "No, I'm going to wait for the bus." Then he starts trying to bribe me with drugs. He's, "I have mota, I have coke. Come, it's cold." And I said, "No, I'm going to wait for the bus." Well, he starts walking towards me. Mind you, the passenger door is still open. He starts walking towards me as he sits down next to me. I was sitting on a stone bench. There was no covering. It was just a stone bench. And he says to me again, "Come, I'll take you home. It's cold." And I told him no. Then he puts his hand on my right thigh and again tells me, and I pushed his arm away. And I was getting really annoyed at this point. And I said, "You know what? No." I was not afraid of this guy because of his size. I thought, when I saw him, I thought, I could take him on. I had no fear of this man whatsoever because he was a little guy, thin little guy. No fear. You have to understand, I was like 220 pounds back then. And for a woman, I was told I was really strong. Then this man gets up. He must have been about late 30s, early 40s. He gets up. And before I knew it, he grabs my wrist and yanks me with such force that he pulled me up like I was just a rag doll. At the moment that he pulled me up, that's when I was like, "Oh my God, he is strong." And that's when I knew I was in big trouble. Somehow I started struggling, like trying to pull myself away from him. I turned around. I managed to turn myself around, and then he had me in a bear hug, and he was trying to drag me to the passenger door, like the passenger side. I don't know how I did it, but somehow I managed to break free from his grip, and I lunged for the stone bench. And I was gripping to the stone bench for dear life. I was gripping it on like this. I was gripping onto that stone bench. He was trying to pull me off. Something told me to not scream, keep it calm. I don't know how long we were struggling for, but I ended up exhausting him that he let me go. And then I sat back down on the bench and I was cool as can be. I wasn't even acknowledging him. Didn't even acknowledge that I acted as nothing had happened, that this guy did not just try to kidnap me. I just played it cool. And the guy was just standing there watching me. So there was this weird moment of silence between us. I wasn't reacting. He wasn't reacting. And we were just, I don't know how long we were just looking at each other in silence. And then he said to me, "Do you want a ride?" And I said to him, "No, thank you." He walked towards his truck, closed the passenger door, went through the front, and then the truck took off. My heart was beating, but I was cool as can be. yesterday, this as I was walking to the bank, again the memory came up and I wasn't understanding. I don't understand, why are you showing me this? And then it started to hit me. My shadow was trying to show me when it had protected me. For you see, when he let me go, it was as if the mechanism that I had developed as protection came over me. And this part of me had analyzed this man and knew that if I had screamed or done anything, if I started to panic, it would have started to panic him and he would have started punching me. Because during the struggle, he never tried to punch me. He was just trying to drag me, force me into the truck. But somehow I knew my shadow, I understand it now, that my shadow took over, acted like nothing happened, because it understood that if I behaved this way, that this man was going to be like, oh, okay, she's cool about this, right? I'm still processing. So that was interesting connection to make of the shadow, that this was how it tried to protect me in the past when I encountered stressful situations. I'm still analyzing this because I just made this realization yesterday. So anyways, I've been working on this healing method for quite some time. And I've been trying to try different methods of how to make people comfortable with understanding the darker parts of our personality. Because most people don't like to look at that. You know, they don't look at it. They think it's nothing good. But what I'm starting to understand as I started to get know my shadow is that there is a lot of power and potential if you know how to harness it and use it in a positive manner. I used this side last year, the rage that I felt against the sexual abuse. I used that as fuel to push me to return to school. I'm currently in the master's program in the field of psychology on the scientific side, to become a researcher. Of course, I'm going to try for psychedelics, but I'm learning about the shadow. I'm starting to understand a little bit about it more. So I've been coming up with different methods on how little techniques people can use. And one of the things I was thinking about after I had that memory and made the connection with my shadow is role playing. Sometimes I do role playing with my shadow. I pretend that my shadow is a different person. I understand the personality of my shadow. And by understanding and giving it personality, I get more glimpses into how I can use this part of me as fuel to give me the kind of life that I want. And so anyways, after I had that memory with the trucker and I made the connection that my shadow was trying to protect me during that time, I started looking at my shadow as when they wanted to protect me as a black jaguar or a black panther, but a black jungle cat. And I imagine me having this cat walking next to me as a form of protection. And I just laughed because, oh, that's so funny. I'm now looking at my shadow as a black jungle cat, right? Well, I had to work late shift last night. And there is a resident where I work at. I work as a nursing assistant at a nursing home. And one of the residents, she is the most negative person there. She's very insulting to people, everybody. She'll call them assholes, you're an idiot, like the worst negative kind of person. But I built this very loving friendship kind of relationship with her where I make her laugh. She's always still negative towards me, but I make her laugh and it kind of dissipates some of the negativity. So I had to go into her room because I had to feed her. And as I enter her room, I saw she had a stuffed animal, a black cat. Just how I imagined me walking with my shadow as a protector in the form of a black jungle cat. I took a picture of it, and I just thought that was very interesting. And plus, since she's such a negative person, it was almost like, okay, I get it. Negative person representing my shadow, the cat showing me that it was protecting me. So I thought that was an interesting coincidence that I made. And I've been having this really weird feeling today. Oh, so one thing I noticed yesterday is that I started to notice my sense of smell. I have because of allergies, and I think I used to, as a teenager, my drug of choice was crystal meth. So I had every day for about a year and a half, I snorted crystal meth a few times a day. So because of that, I have problems with my nose, breathing. I can't breathe. I can't really smell too clearly, but yesterday I started to notice that I was starting to smell, becoming aware of my smell, the smells of around me. Today also, I was becoming more aware of my sense of smell, so I've been trying to breathe. I see if there's any scents that I'm smelling around me. And I'm using that also as a way to anchor myself in the present. I'll talk about living in the now in another video, but I just wanted to make that interesting connection. I've been feeling that a lot of changes are coming my way and that I needed to clear the path. I had started a few years back a group that I called the Healers Group. Because of school, I didn't have time to host any more sessions, so I deleted that group. I had started a different group where I was testing some of my healing methods, but because of low participation and again, my lack of time, I took it as a message from the universe that I had to close everything that I had because I needed to make room for a different foundation to build on what I had started on my earlier work. Anyways, so that's all I wanted to share. Till next time. Bye.